Welcome to Star Wars Characters Explained. The Rise of Exar Kun, Chapter 1. We are going to be learning about the ascension of one of the most powerful and dangerous fallen Jedi ever to exist in the Star Wars universe. However, fortunately, unlike Revan, my last chapter-based character, this series will span 3 chapters, unlike 5. So just to remind you, if you go on to enjoy this chapter, be sure to subscribe so you're up to date and you can join me in Chapter 2. Exar Kun was born on an unknown planet, sometime between 4040 and 4020 BBY, and like most young children, he was discovered by the Jedi Order as highly Force-sensitive, and subsequently he was taken to the Jedi Academy on Dantooine. He was assigned as a Padawan under Master Vodo Siosk Bas, along with 2 Cathar life mates known as Credo and Silva. During his training, Exar was fueled by the desire of becoming one of the greatest Jedi ever, and as he trained, his skills with a lightsaber became almost unparalleled. However, within this burning desire lay pride and arrogance, and Exar believed himself ready to learn about all kinds of forbidden knowledge restricted to those of Jedi Knight status and above, despite only being a Padawan. In 3997 BBY, Exar snuck into his master's hut and opened his holocron, learning for the first time about the fallen Jedi turned Sith Lord Freeden Nard. However, before he could fully learn about the information of the Sith on this holocron, Master Bas caught him, taking away the holocron and criticising his young apprentice for his curiosity on such forbidden topics. A short time after, nearing the end of his lightsaber training, Exar was sent for dueling practice with his training partners Credo and Silva. During the duel, Exar initially clashed sabers with Credo, defeating him quickly with complete ease. However, Silva was not as weak as Credo, and the two engaged in a furious duel in which Exar began to taunt the young Cathar, insulting her heritage.
It's time you learned that animal Jedi are no match for humans.
Silva, in a fit of rage, unsheathed her claws, slashing them across Exar's face, leaving what would be a nasty scar. Exar was shocked and centered himself into his own rage. He overpowered with ease the Cathar girl, nearly killing her until Master Bas stepped in and disarmed him. A defeated Credo, though, threw to him his own lightsaber, daring him to challenge their master, a dare which Exar didn't refuse. Master and apprentice duelled, but Bas quickly found a point of weakness in Exar's form and sent his apprentice flying with a single strike using a simple wooden staff. Spotting his own lightsaber on the ground, Exar, using the Force, summoned it to him. Now armed with 2 lightsabers, he summoned the same rage and strength that he used against Silva, going on the offensive, launching a vicious assault on his master. After several minutes of dueling, Exar slashed and cut his master's staff in 2, winning the duel, with his master proclaiming Exar to be his greatest student. After becoming a Jedi Knight shortly after, Exar left Dantooine and his master due to his hunger to learn about the Sith, especially Freeden Nard, and so he took his personal starship, the Starstorm 1, and travelled to Onderon where the Sith Lord once reigned. He posed as a Jedi archaeologist, meeting with the Jedi Keldroma and Tot Denita, who were supervisors on a project where the Jedi were turning Freeden Nard's ancient buried starship into a Jedi outpost. However, Exar was interested in Sith artifacts found at the resting place of Onderonian King Omin. However, the 2 Jedi had been ordered to ship them off-world to the Jedi Library on Ossus, instead offering him a mere tour of Freeden's court in the Onderonian city of Isis. Despite Exar's insistence to study them, Keldroma and Denita's master, Arkajeth, arrived on his tame Drexel. Arka knew that Exar was lying about his identity and ordered him to leave Onderon, trying to banish the curious Jedi from the planet for his fascination with the dark side. Although despite his fascination with the dark side, Exar simply thirsted for knowledge and was devoted to the light. He brushed the Jedi Master's threat of banishment off and proceeded into Isis to continue his investigations alone. As he travelled through the city, he noticed 2 Freeden Nard sympathisers known as Nebo and Rask being heckled by a crowd for preaching about the Sith Lord, and Exar saw this as a potential opportunity to gather information. He helped the 2 out of a difficult spot and wanted information in return. They revealed that Freeden Nard's tomb was located on Duxon, the jungle moon of Onderon, and in return for gold, Exar convinced them to take him to it. When they arrived on the moon, Exar ventured to the temple alone, cutting through the beasts that had been used to protect the tomb from thieves and grave robbers. However, when he reached the building itself, it was completely encased in Mandalorian iron, a metal that lightsabers couldn't cut. After several failed tries to get through, Exar felt a strange power surrounding him, as if something wanted to help him get through. On his next try, the metal was completely obliterated, and Exar could faintly hear the call of his former master, Vodo Bas, trying to convince him to go no further, but he proceeded anyway. As he walked through this tomb, he finally came across the very corpse of Freeden Nard himself, but before he could do anything, the spirit of the dead Sith Lord emerged from the skeletal remains.
What kind of madman are you, who dares to violate my final resting?
Despite Exar's attempts at convincing himself that Nard was merely a dangerous spirit, the Sith Lord offered him a gift.
Take the corpse out of the sarcophagus.
The shaken Jedi could once again hear the voice of his master, Vodo Bas, through the Force, but his curiosity drove him to follow the order of the Sith Lord. When he removed the body, he found ancient scrolls. These scrolls would lead him to the Sith homeworld of Korriban. Freeden Nard's spirit then miraculously disappeared, and as Exar left the temple, he was ambushed by Nebo and Rask, who wanted the loot for themselves. But Exar gave into his anger, and the dark power of Freeden igniting his lightsaber, striking the two men down in a fit of fury. When he calmed, he realised what he had just done, distressed over how easily he gave in to the touch of the dark side that Freeden had planted. But despite this, he was determined to press on, and this distress turned into excitement. Exar landed the Starstorm 1 on the dusty red surface of Korriban, in an area what was known as the Valley of the Dark Lords. He walked through the valley, looking at the tombs around him and at the corpses of dead space pirates, but as he did, dark energies swirled around the bones, and the skeletons, now reanimated, began to attack the Jedi. He ignited his lightsaber, defending himself, striking down the walking remains, but Freeden's spirit had once again appeared and beckoned him to take refuge in the nearby Great Temple, and Exar did, but as he entered he felt uneasy, as the power of the dark side here was unlike anything he had ever felt. He decided to return to his ship to plan a course of action, but before he could turn back, a landslide blocked the entrance, and Exar was forced to press on. As he made his way into the temple, he came across a giant crystal which Freeden explained held the souls of slain Jedi Masters. As Exar peered into the crystal, Freeden used the energy of the temple to collapse the roof, destroying the crystal itself, killing the Jedi souls, and shattering Exar's bones in 100 places. As Exar anguished in agonizing pain, he cried for the help of his former master Vodo Bas, who could hear the screams of his Padawan from light years away. Vodo tried to meditate, to protect Exar in a bubble of pure light energy, but Freeden manifested himself on the ship, throwing Vodo against the metal in a hole, breaking his connection to his dying student. The Sith spirit returned to the dying Exar, offering him a proposition.
Your skeleton is shattered. If you want to live, accept the dark side of the Force.
And as much as Exar tried to refuse, he knew he couldn't die. He had come too far.
I accept your terms. Damn you. I said I accept.
And just like that, after truly opening himself up to the dark side, his bones began to restructure and heal. However, this came with a pain unlike anything he had ever felt, and his cries of pain could be heard by Jedi from across the entire galaxy. But from this pain rose a man who had never felt so strong. Freeden and Exar proceeded further into the tomb, and Exar realised he was now able to read Sith writing found on the sarcophagi of a number of dead Sith Lords. However, despite giving into the dark side a short while prior, he reiterated his devotion to the light. But as he spoke, two Carter Guardians leapt from the shadows, attacking Kun, who mysteriously found that his ability to call upon the light side of the Force was completely blocked. With the hound's teeth at his throat, Exar once again called upon the dark side, this time with less hesitation, to summon his lightsaber, slaying the beasts with a series of precise slashes. The spirits of the dead Sith Lords who resided in the tomb could be heard whispering, approving of the Jedi's growing dark power. Frieden then beckoned Exar to travel to Yavin 4 to recover the remnant artifacts of the Sith Lord Naga Sadow that were left behind following his death, and Exar agreed.
I am going to Yavin 4, but unlike you, I will never be seduced by the dark side. Oh, but you already have. You already
Exar exited hyperspace over Yavin 4 and landed his ship near one of the temples that dotted the moon's surface. As he left, once again the spirit of Frieden Nard began to talk to him, warning him of the Massassi, a race of creatures mutated by Naga Sadow into being loyal slaves. But Exar rebuked Nard's help and ignored the spiritual Sith Lord. As he tried to press on, however, just as Nard had warned, a group of hideously mutated creatures jumped the Jedi. They threw metal discs at Exar, who once again found himself unable to call upon the light side of the Force to defend himself, and as a result he was struck over the head, causing him to lose focus and balance. This allowed a horde of Massassi to knock him down, overwhelm and capture him, while he watched them rip his ship apart. He was brought before the priest, known as Zithmanir, who could sense Exar's power, and ordered his soldiers to take him to the Temple of Fire. When they arrived, Exar was chained to some sort of altar, being called an honoured Jedi guest of a blood sacrifice of the Massassi. As Zithmanir began chanting and dark energy swelled around the temple, Exar began to wonder why the light had abandoned him in his moments of need. But before he could think of anything else, the temple began to shake, which broke his chains and flung him from the altar. As he stood, a giant Sith Wyrm, a monstrous creature created by Naga Sadow to protect his legacy, emerged from the ground, grabbing Exar. The guest had now become the victim, and the giant beast had begun to squeeze the life out of the once again dying Jedi. But Frieden Nard's spirit was there again, telling Exar to give into the dark side. It was now that Exar truly let go of his futile belief that he wasn't consumed by darkness and fully abandoned the Jedi way. He found that giving in purely to dark side energy, he could speak in the Sith tongue and channeled his rage and hatred, calling to him the Sith amulet that Zithmanir was wielding, an amulet that belonged to Naga Sadow. This amulet would allow Exar to channel the dark side 1,000 times what he normally could, increasing his power beyond anything he could ever hope to believe.
Yes, Nard. I believe I begin to understand.
Exar focused this power into a beam of uncontrollable, pure physical dark side energy that physically burned the fallen Jedi's flesh as he summoned it. But the more pain he felt, the more powerful the beam became, shredding through the hide of the Wyrm, killing it as well as countless amounts of Massassi who were caught within the blast radius. The Massassi that survived bowed and pledged their allegiance to their new master, and although the power of the amulet almost consumed him, he was victorious. Frieden, elated at Exar's success, applauded the fallen Jedi, declaring it time to finally work on Naga Sadow's alchemy that could give Frieden a physical form.
I am hungry to reacquire flesh, and life, and power.
But Exar was sick of Frieden and his manipulative ways.
Power? Yes. There is power.
Exar looked at the spirit of the irritating Sith Lord, and just like that used the amulet to obliterate him, killing him for a second time. But unbeknownst to Exar, Frieden's spirit in its last moments reached out to Satao and Alima Keto of the Krath cult, a dark-side-imbued pair of students he had away from Exar, who conquered the Empress Teta system using Sith magic. Frieden warned them of the fallen Jedi's newfound power and the threat that he posed, and that he must be destroyed as he was a pretender to the Sith legacy. But just a few seconds later, Frieden Nard was no more. This was Exar Kun's destiny, and he wouldn't be controlled by anyone, because his reign of terror was about to begin. Of course, Exar's story has just begun, and if you want to know what happens next, be sure to subscribe so you're notified when Chapter 2, The War of Exar Kun, is released. Also, I'd be really grateful if you hit the like button, it helps me out a great deal. If you haven't, follow me on social media, check out my Patreon page if you want to support the channel further, and please, if you haven't, come and join my Discord. I'd love to have you there so we can talk about Star Wars. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, may the Force be with you, always.